you're all well, and I hope the weather's treating you okay. We were just saying this is my last week in Chicago. I'll just be flying back next week to Plague Island. I believe that I will not be on next week, but Jake will be stepping in my place. Yeah, so that's how it is, and I'll see you the week after next. Right, okay, let's just kick through. As normal, I have my panel with me. We have Liz. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Okay, and we have Naomi. Hi, Naomi.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, everyone.
Is Gareth on?
About to say, I've not seen Gareth come on.
Okay, if he comes on, he'll come on a bit later. We have Nick is going to be marshalling. Hi, Nick.
Oh.
And Laura is still wrestling with her conversions, so Laura won't be with us again this week. Okay, I guess probably first thing, I know I did this last week, but just to remind us, if you're going to Telford, please come and see us. We're going to be on stand 34. We'll have Nick, Bessie, Sue and Peter with us. Damien is going to be doing a talk on the future of claiming and service delivery at the 14:35 slot on Thursday. That's the benefit stream. And it should be fun. I've seen his presentation. Lots of talk about robots and androids, and this is a picture here of maybe one of your future customer services staff. Here's another picture of a possible customer services staff, and of course here's another one who could possibly maybe be part of your fraud team. I don't know.
What's happening
anyway,
at Telford?
So that's they're the options for the future of your frontline services.
What's happening at Telford, Malcolm?
And of course, here's another robot here that is you may see. We may actually deploy that one at Telford. Sorry, Kevin, what's your question?
I said, what's actually happening at Telford, Malcolm?
Oh, at Telford, it's the IRRV conference.
Thank you.
Kevin, you're going to be there too, aren't you?
I will be, Malcolm. Yes.
And are you up for an award this year?
I believe my authority's up for 2 awards, Malcolm.
2 awards. Which awards are those?
Partnership and innovation.
Excellent. Is anybody else up for an award today? Who's with us? Anybody want to raise their hand and tell us that they're up for an award? Are they all shining? No?
Gareth is with us, by the way, Malcolm.
Here's Gareth. Oh, Gareth's in his car. Gareth is going on holiday, aren't you, Gareth?
Gareth is outside Dijon. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's crack on then. We'll have a quick look at the benefit stats because the furlough ended on Friday, so I thought we might get sort of the first inklings of what was happening as far as claiming is concerned. Actually, not much movement at all on the number of people claiming. It went slightly up. You can see that it started to rise. In fact, it started to rise the last 2 weeks in the number of people claiming, but it hasn't changed. The trend line is still pretty static. For the numbers going through for calculations, those numbers have gone up as well. There's a slight steady rise there at the end of there, but again, the trend line is still generally holding. And lastly, the number of people who have got through to make a claim, that's gone up as well. So that's what we would expect, Gareth, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's too early to know at the moment, but yeah, it looks about what we're expecting. Yeah,
so I think towards the end of the year, for the next few weeks, we'll probably see an increase, and then it will probably drop after that, maybe. Right. Okay. So, Kevin, let's come over to you for council tax and business rates news.
Well, not much really to say further to previous notes, and I'll include business grants within this. For those of you dealing with business grants, you'll have noticed that last week you received the guidance on the reconciliations for the restart grants. You'll also notice that the BIS probably updated the ARG league tables, as I call them, and they will continue to publish the league tables for ARG throughout the year, and they will also publish well, they've finished publishing the other league tables now because all the grants have been paid. So, but they are updated on the website. If you want the links, let me know. On the grants side, they're still chasing up the reconciliations. And please note, you will need to do a constituency exercise again on parliamentary constituencies for all the grants you've paid since the last time. There will be notices this week coming out to ask you to do that. On business rates itself, we're all eagerly still awaiting the new COVID MCC reliefs, whatever that will be called. Still no sign of that before December. The next reading, the second reading before the Lords, is on the 26th of October. And we're all waiting for the 27th of October and the Chancellor's statement and the business rates fundamental review to see what happens with business rates, to see whether or not our duties are continuing or not. On the MCC reliefs, obviously we've got to do a discretionary scheme. We're looking to do a county-wide scheme in West Sussex. We will need to get member approval, but we've got legal opinion that we don't need to do a consultation as it's a one-off exercise based on government guidelines. So, but do check with your legal people what you're required to do. I suspect when the royal assent is granted, the government machine will work and there'll be headlines and press releases out stating this relief is available and please contact your local authority. So I'm not expecting any favours as ever from central government. On the expanded retail discount, we've got an application process. We're still about 50% of people applying, and we're just doing summonses for those that haven't applied. So obviously we are picking more up as we speak. But obviously that's a lot more to collect. We're 8% down on our collection rate as at the end of August. We're still waiting for the September figures, but hopefully they'll be out shortly. I am expecting to make some of that up, but we'll wait and see. Council tax, fairly quiet compared to other things. As Malcolm said, we're just waiting to see the impact of the furlough scheme and to see what the impact is on benefits and council tax. Happy to take any questions, Malcolm. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible.
Okay, I appreciate that, Kevin. If there are any questions, please either raise your hand electronically and Nick will open the mics for you, or you can type your question into the discussion boxes and Nick will read them out for us.
Could I just make one further comment, by the way? You know those Delta returns we've been asked to do weekly? If you are continuing to do them, and we've got an exemption at Mid-Sussex, so we've paid all our grants, they will now continue to be done on a monthly basis rather than a weekly basis.
Okay, I think we've got a discussion point on that a bit later on, Kevin. So I'll be looking for you to chip in on that discussion. In general, I've got a question for you. Andy Burnham, who's the Labour mayor of Manchester, expressed that he thought that Gove was a really good appointment in terms of being in charge of whatever this department's now called. I don't know why they just don't call it the Department of Village People and have done with it. But it seems to me as though he is already being quite lively. You know, and league tables that you've just spoken about, we can expect those pretty much as the norm, can't we, in the future?
I have to be careful here that I don't go into political territory. All I can say is it'll be all right, Gov. But my view is that, yes, it is going to be quite lively. Yes, league tables are good to be presented, but I wouldn't get too close if he's got a knife in his hand. Yeah,
okay, I think that's a fair comment, and that's not political. I mean, that's just, you know, kind of the facts, really. Okay, did we have any questions or comments at all, Nick?
Nope, nobody, nope.
Can I also add, by the way, that they're struggling to get emails and correspondence out at the moment because they haven't got a new logo or a pseudo name for their new department. There has been several, DLUHC has been mentioned, but they haven't as yet finalised that.
Okay.
So if you wait for correspondence at the moment from them, that's the reason why.
Yeah, of all the reasons that you don't get notified of everything, not having a new logo seems to me to be a pretty poor reason. But anyway, there we go. Right. Okay. So I think.
Hang on, just a minute. What about the thing that was posted in the WhatsApp group about having to complete the new CTB1 with
Okay,
the new
let's
branding?
move to that now then, shall we?
Yes.
That's on the discussion list.
Is
the
it?
return to returns. So,
Oh, okay.
so yes,
All
so the
right.
WhatsApp group raised this question of the return to these CTB ones. So Sean, are you on at all by any chance?
I don't think he is.
No.
I
Okay.
think he's fearing he'll be shot.
Yeah, he did. It did seem. It did seem as though he was quite shocked. So what Sean said was, heads up for Monday. You've all been sent a new CTB one because there is an error with the one that's sent. Mr. Gove wants new branding. So exactly what you said, Kevin. You must complete the new levelling up form. And as Sean says, I'm just the messenger, so I'm not to be shot. And he says, for councils with trance music nightclubs, I wonder if you'll get a large increase in the grant, which is probably a fair comment. So he then went on to say, you will have got this over the weekend. So is this, what's your comments on this, Kevin? This filling all of this in.
I just think we're going to get asked to do more and more returns. I think the scene has been set on the grants. The amount of information we've had to return on the grants has been massive. And particularly the way we're funded, the way we go forward on this, I just think we'll be asked to do more and more administration.
And Naomi, I mean, that does seem to be the trend, and the trend of government right across the board, isn't it? Asking for more and more information to find out what local government is for.
Yes, absolutely. Not unusual, I suppose, bearing in mind the times. There's been lots of new initiatives. They do need to understand how effective they have been. What the government do need to understand is that if we didn't collect the information at the start of a grant project, whatever, to go and try and get data retrospectively is just horrific.
I'd agree with that across the board. What we're finding is we're being asked to introduce something, and then not only do they shift the goalpost, they shift the whole pitch.
Yeah, I mean, this looked to me, when I looked at these questions, I mean, it does seem to me, and if I look at other areas where similar kind of questions are being asked, not just within revenues and benefits, but in places like social services and education and health, it does make me feel as though this government is starting to get prepared for a major reorganisation of local government. And so therefore it's trying to understand much more about how we operate and what we're doing. Is that the feel that you get?
That is definitely my feel. I think local government will be looked at before they've kept us away from us if we haven't wanted it. I think it may get to the situation where they review it completely. I noticed that they've taken local government out of the title. So is that something to note?
Yes, yeah. Gareth, what's your view from the outside?
I think from the outside, it's not so much wanting to know more about what local government does. I think it's a lot more about a kind of centralising agenda of being much more in control of not just what local government does, but how it does it.
It feels very much like the Brown-Blair years, particularly the Brown years, with the Audit Commission and their key lines of inquiry. Liz, is that how it feels to you? Or?
Well, I have to say, again, slightly from the outside, when I read this from Sean, the first thing that did occur to me was, well, there's a purpose behind this. I mean, I hadn't really discerned what purpose it was, but it does have a great feel of control. But as I say, to what purpose? I mean, it could be you, Malcolm, or it could be what Gareth's saying.
Yeah, me reminiscing now, Malcolm, on the key lines of inquiry. I remember it fondly.
Yeah, and key lines of inquiry was also about centralisation and controlling how local authorities operated from the centre. So it's very much. I mean, I don't think Gareth and I are not unaligned on our thinking of this, but it does start to feel. And did we like key lines of inquiry? Naomi, did you like key lines of inquiry?
No, not one bit. I'm not entirely sure this is a preparation for more centralisation, because a lot of the tricky, difficult to do stuff has been done very well by local government. So I think there'll be more of that. Whether they'll be following funding is another matter.
I personally think, Malcolm, Kevin here again, the fundamental review might give us some answers when that's due, when the Chancellor makes his statement on the 27th of October.
Yeah, and that's not that far away, is it?
It's not that far away at all, but I do agree. For the record, by the way, I did like the key lines of inquiry, but I was seeing it from a different place.
Yes, you did, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, there were bits that I quite liked about key lines of inquiry, in the sense of it focused very much on planning and value for money, but it was somewhat overbearing. There was an awful lot.
It was overbearing, and did seem to wind up and wake up elected members who told me to go and get a real job.
Yes.
Well, come back to
Did you ever do that, Kevin?
Well, I came back into local government. I'll leave you to decide if that's a real job or not.
Right.
Can
Okay.
I was just going to ask a question. Looking at that, I mean, the information is required from January 2016 to January 2021. In my ignorance, how onerous a task is this for local authorities?
2016 is quite a jump back. I suspect that quite a lot of local authorities may not have the information to go back to 2016, but they may do to, say, 2017 perhaps, or 2018. It'd be interesting. Can we put that as a question to the audience, if you don't mind commenting in the chat box there? You know, how many of you would find it difficult to get that information back? It will be interesting. And can I ask? I know Jake is on the call. Jake, perhaps later on you could pitch that question into the WhatsApp group as well.
Righto, will do.
The other thing is that I must admit, I did think the continuity in Sean's WhatsApp post, I wasn't too sure, this is just from my point of view, whether this was the government asking for this, because it reads terribly like a freedom of information request to me. I mean, it just ran on from the other. What I'm just trying to say is it wasn't clear that it was part of what the department of whatever it is was asking for, or whether it was something else that he was sort of saying, you might all get this, something that had been sent round to all local authorities. I don't know. I'm just...
It is definitely something that looks like a freedom of information request. I can certainly agree with that.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, because he didn't make it clear that that was part and parcel of any return that you were giving. I suppose you won't know until you get it, or... No. It did come out in the early hours of Saturday morning as well. And it came from... It came from CTB1 return. They're still sending them out despite the logo issues. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, they're going to your director of finance or section 151 officer normally. There should be up to three for your authority, but we found ours were going all over the place, and we keep telling them to change it, but they're still sending it all over the place.
But if they don't even know what their own department is called, what chance do we stand? I like your title, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me as though this is probably not a freedom of information request, unless it's been a freedom of information request to the government. But that's not normally how they do things.
It wasn't the following. It wasn't quite clear. But then I'm not a, I'm not a.
It would be interesting to see if the software providers can. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if the software providers can provide this information. Because if they can't, I suspect local authorities are going to struggle.
Yep. I have to say that was my thought.
And I guess probably Naomi, if the software providers have to do something new, they'll want to charge the local authorities, won't they?
They're not going to do it for free, bless them.
Okay. Right.
And there won't be new burdens funding on this, so the cost would fall on the authorities.
Yeah. So all in all, we're sort of heading back to normal practice of last minute requests, changes to things, fighting for the money, all of those kind of things.
I wouldn't call them last minute requests. I'd call them after the event requests, Malcolm.
Well, yes, in this particular case. Right. Okay. That's excellent. So we'll move on to the other subject that we clearly need to raise, though there's not that much information at all, which is this new support fund. So the government launches a 500 million support for vulnerable households over winter, and this is supposed to placate the poor, and once the £20 has been taken away from them, is this going to win over the red walls? I wonder. I guess the main question is what do we know about this? And there was a lot of waffle in the media about it. So I'm going to pitch this over to you guys. What do you know about it? I mean, I've picked out some things that have come from the waffle, but do we know anything at all about this? What do we think is going to happen with this new grant? Shall I start with you, Naomi?
Well, confusion reigns. The first anyone knew about it was probably from the BBC. Colleagues at the county in Cambridgeshire knew nothing about it. Already had hits from software houses saying, well, we can help you with vouchers and stuff. I think it is a desperate attempt to head off any negativity for the £20 universal credit loss. And as I said earlier, everything is going back to local government. Anything that's top left-hand drawer, it's marked too difficult to do, does quite often get farmed out to local government.
And is this going to go to the county, do you think, or will it come to the districts?
No, initially it's going to unitaries and the county, although it's mentioned probably 3 times in the official information. Work closely with your district. How close that looks is going to depend up and down the country on different local authorities, different political makeups.
Malcolm, can I come in there, please?
Yep, please.
Yeah. I was having a little bit of a celebration jig on Friday because I'd got from the DWP that the unitary and the county councils were going to do this and not districts, which is a district authority. I thought, yep, breathe a sigh of relief. I've had a further email from the DWP today to state they haven't finalised who's going to be responsible for processing this, and the district authorities are still in the running to do it as well. So for those of you that, and I've shared that within my authority, please note they haven't made a final decision of who's going to be responsible for this administration. The other thing I'd say to this is it's conference season, isn't it? And yes, I agree with Naomi, the £20 top up is dropping, and they want to actually top up the publicity from that. So, but if you think as a district you're out of the running, forget it. According to DWP this morning, you're still in the running to do this.
Okay, and generally, I mean, let me pitch this to you, Liz, and then I want to come to Gareth. This doesn't seem to me as though if you're having a long-term plan for local welfare, that counties are the right place to pitch this. That districts is probably the better place. The districts and unitaries.
Especially as the publicity that I've seen, which of course may just be, media stuff, but I mean the publicity I've seen is basically saying contact your local council. Well, most people look at their local council as being their local council, their local office, not county.
Yeah.
So I think Kevin's absolutely right. I don't think any district can count themselves out of the running on this.
But I think the interesting question, of course, is, well, who's it for, and therefore who are the best people to get the money to them? I mean, we're lucky in Wales, I guess. We've got the discretionary assistance fund that replaced all of the old kind of social care grant bits, and that's a natural place for it to sit. But in terms of delivery otherwise, well, is it kind of the DHP clientele? Is it social service clients? Is it the people who might have been affected by business grants? I mean, who actually is the money for? It's clearly not actually designed to be money to really help people. It's back almost to the old charitable fund, isn't it? A little bit of cash to keep somebody quiet after they've knocked on your door at night.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that I guess that probably is where my question's coming from, because if I look at, say, what Cheshire West and Chester are doing, where they have the single application for basically almost all of these schemes, and a set of questions to identify which bits of funding people would be entitled to, and to maximise that. Is that the kind of direction that local authorities should be going for? And is the county the right place, or is this just an argument for more unitaries?
I think it's an argument for trying to avoid doing it for a number of reasons. I mean, it's discretionary, and that puts an awful lot of load on people at probably the wrong kind of level to make those sorts of decisions. And secondly, if I were in local government, I'd worry about people like me, because people like me are going to be challenging those refusals and the application of those discretion, and that's going to put an enormous workload on people.
But that draws on that.
Can I just say there, Malcolm?
Yeah,
I would say the fact this is discretionary, there will be no appeal mechanism. There'll probably be a challenge mechanism, but you're generally on a point of law. Can I also say, taking on board what Gareth said, which I greatly value, I think the local knowledge has proved really helpful on the business grant side. I think Naomi's quite right. You're going to be thinking outside your normal clientele for this, but probably the best people linking up with your housing services, your sisters advice, your other agencies is probably the local district council to actually do. But I agree, it's going to be one hell of a task, and once again adding to the day-to-day running of a Rebs and Ben service that once again gets everything thrown at it with probably little appreciation within the authority themselves.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, for me,
Malcolm, Naomi did have their hand up.
Oh, go on, Naomi. Yeah.
Let her in.
To add in, actually, our county council did really well and operated a scheme to support self-isolation where we couldn't pay through, the test and trace. And they have we still retained a local welfare provision funding through the county council. Actually, that's outsourced, but that worked really, really well. And during the back end of the pandemic, they were given additional money from county, and it really was very positive. And they were able to give vouchers, they were able to team up with recycling groups. It might just be because they've got the people, they've got the contacts, but it did work really, really well. We are at the district still struggling dealing with applications for DHPs, self-isolation payments, to quickly try and get something out on the streets for this would be a nightmare for us.
Yeah, and I think that's probably mirrored across the country as well. You know, it's another postcode lottery, isn't it?
It is a postcode lottery, and it depends how successful authorities are in dealing with it. If you do deal with it, there will be new burdens funding available, but because it's new, but there'll be an awful lot of work. I agree with that.
I think there's also the danger that the money will go, if you like, to the usual suspects. So it'll be the people that the authority already knows about and is already in contact with and offering services to. But the people who may really most need this kind of help are those people who are coming off benefit or seeing their universal credit drop when they've been claimants for the first time, and they just have no idea where else to go.
And Gareth, all of this kind of, speaks to me about the difference between means-tested benefits and discretionary awards. That with means-tested benefits, we're all about finding reasons not to give people money, but discretionary awards is about giving people money, finding reasons to give money to people and to hunt them out.
I think that depends on the amount, on the size of the budget, doesn't it? I mean, we know that this is going to be nowhere near, even 10% replacement of the £20 loss. So it's not going to be a question of desperately seeking to give people money. It's going to be a budgeting exercise, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, you're quite right in saying that. But the thing about discretionary payments is discretionary payments meet the legal challenges in a far more interesting way, don't they? Because not having enough budget is often not a reason for not making an award when you get into the legal arguments, but it quite clearly is very much part and parcel of running the budget in the first instance. And that just raises the question for me for local authorities about how they kind of balance that when you consider that many of them have rooted into quite non-progressive council tax reduction schemes in order to protect the budgets, and that just seems to me again that the government has largely managed to sidestep the issue and place the both the legal and the budgetary burdens on the local authority, and also the blame.
Oh, absolutely. Passing the buck is great. I think there's going to be a real problem for local authorities, a legal real problem here, of course, as well, which is that this is going to be something going out quickly. And that's going to mean that local authorities are going to be very tempted to have some kind of policies in place. And of course, then you're coming up to, well, are we fettering the discretion by not being able to look individually at things in enough detail and for enough personal concern?
Yeah, go on, Kevin.
Malcolm,
yeah, sorry, Nick.
Robert has put a comment in the group, and he's happy to come on and sort of tell us a little bit of some first-hand ideas.
Let's invite Robert on then.
Unmute yourself, Robert, when you're ready.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Robert.
I get everything that you're saying, but from a local authority perspective, it is what it is. The work is thrown at us, and we either pick it up and we run with it, or we don't. We were in a very fortunate position here in LBBD that even with all the additional work, we decided, well, the benefits to the local community could be quite staggering if we manage this correctly. So we threw the resource at it, we looked at it properly, and we looked at what we could do with the money. And the cost of administering it, that was as a side issue, and we built it in to business as usual. And we were just in a fortunate position to be able to do that. And it worked very well. We were not only able to target the free school meals cohort with a proportion of that funding, the proportion of funding outside of that was targeted at free school meals, we then aligned a side of our DHP scheme, our local hardship scheme, and our test and trace scheme to pick up those people that were falling through the cracks. and just to alleviate some of that financial pressure on the council, because we were having to top up the DHP fund because it was never enough funding. We were having to fund the local hardship scheme fully because we decided our community needed that, and that was all coming out of council funding. So what all this COVID support, the winter COVID support did, and what the summer COVID support grant did, and what hopefully this will do, is it just alleviates some of that pressure on the local coffers, fills those pots up with government money, but allows us to target our local community very, very specifically in terms of looking at all those different cohorts that you're talking about that are in need, because you've got a variety of people. Yes, you've got those that are already known to us, but they've already got support mechanisms in place that we have built with them over the last few years, so we know who they are. But what we've done differently this time is, over the last 18 months, we've actually been, by using the universal credit files that are coming through to us, we've actually been targeting those people that are very new, brand new to the benefits system, never had to claim before, and actually been touching base directly with that cohort of people to see what level of understanding they've got in terms of what access they've got, what financial support they've got, what additional financial support are they likely to need, to sort of preempt that downward spiral and stop that happening, so that hopefully by the time they were coming out of the COVID pandemic, they were able to self-sustain and life get back to normal.
I mean, that's really good, Robert, and I mean that kind of speaks volumes to how these things should be run. And I guess probably the one thing that I'd like to just sort of push you a little bit on is it's the knock-on savings, you know, that are not necessarily readily available, but presumably you've got quite a lot of knock-on savings where people didn't have to call on other help if they were just flailing around for assistance, or it was unstructured.
We also did a calculation from the first cohort of funding that we did for that, from that initial first winter COVID scheme. And by targeting the support the way that we did it, we actually only had an 8% repeat footfall. 92% of those people that we targeted, gave that support to and structured that support specifically for them, didn't have to come back through our door, and they have managed to sustain themselves through the rest of the pandemic by us stepping in right at early doors, giving them that support during that universal credit transition period, and that has that's enabled them to self-support for the rest of the time that they've not been able to be at work, or they've had reduced furlough income, whatever the reasons may have been. And I think to only have an 8% repeat footfall by having that targeted work speaks volumes for the work that we were able to do.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, thanks for coming on and sharing that. Do any of the panel have any questions there for Robert?
So yes, I do. Robert, so you've continued to prepare for the £20 reduction.
We have.
What effect do you think that is going to have? Do you think you're going to get, well, what now is a repeat caller? Do you think your repeat callers will go up?
I think it will go up because we were one of the largest impacted boroughs in terms of universal credit claimants. So our figures are, I think it was just over 16,000 of our local families are going to be directly impacted by the £20 removal. And we've already started sort of looking at trying to break down how that is going to impact at different income levels. And we do feel that there is going to be, out of the 92% that we were able to target, we've been able to identify at the moment that approximately 33% of those are going to possibly need further intervention because they're on the lowest income base, which minimum wage, very few hours, 0 hours contracts, etc. We think the other proportion actually are going to be able to manage. It's going to have an impact, but actually they've got a bit of flex there where it's not going to have as big an impact on the lowest 33%. And they're the people that we have got ready, that as soon as we know the detail of this, they'll be the first people that we contact to see exactly where they are and what the initial impacts are going to be.
Can I ask, Robert, whether you think being a unitary has helped in this?
I think it's given us a lot more freedom because we've not been answerable to anybody but ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely right, Robert. That's where it goes. Okay. Any further questions for Robert? Any more on this discussion? Because I know the time is now 12:41, so I'll sort of start to wrap up.
Well, I just one. Again, Robert, so what money did you have available to do this before you knew about this new 500 million?
The council.
Or did you always assume it would happen?
No, we didn't.
I don't think you don't sound like somebody who's made assumptions. So.
We planned. We actually planned on the assumption, and it was an assumption that it was just going to go. So right. All our planning was done that we would be reverting back to our local funds, and the council were going to have to fund this. So they'd already planned in terms of looking at the numbers we were talking about. They'd sort of looked at what level of funding would they need to put in to keep the hardship scheme running, the local hardship fund, and the top up for DHP, bearing in mind that our DHP funding also reduced by 22% this year as well. We looked at what we spent last year. We looked at what we spent the year before. We looked at what top ups we needed to do. We looked at what money we'd not had to spend because we'd been able to fall back on the winter COVID support and the summer COVID programme. And we actually got agreement from Cabinet 3 weeks ago with funds ring-fenced to go into the hardship fund, the local hardship fund, and the DHP top-up fund, expecting that we weren't going to get this additional piece of funding. And between those two elements of funding, it was £850,000 that we had ring-fenced.
Thank you. I think that's excellent. Clearly, you're author. I'm sorry, I don't. Where did you say you were from?
Barking and Dagenham.
Oh, I thought so. Yes. Your authority had clearly made it a priority.
Absolutely, because we've seen the impact. We've seen the impact we've been able to have over the last 18 months.
Mm-hmm. So you've got some data to fall back on as well.
Absolutely, we log absolutely everything.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's been brilliant. Nick, do we have anybody else who wants to come in at this stage? Otherwise, I'll start to wrap up.
Nobody wants to come in. Naomi's asked something of Robert. If you want to check the chat, Robert, and see how you feel about that. But yeah, nobody else is asking anything. No hands up. We're all good. Okay,
that's been excellent. Thank you all for attending today. We'll try and pick up on the subsidy discussion next week, or at least ways Jake will pick up on those. Then we'll see what turns up between now and then. Thank you for Robert for joining us. Thank you to my panel. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you, Gareth from the car park. Enjoy your holiday.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Take care.
I always manage to forget somebody, so thank you, Nick, for marshalling. Thank you all for being involved.
Yes, you forgot me, so that's all right.
Oh, Liz, sorry. How could I forget you, Liz?
And I've been quite vocal today as well. So.
You have, yes, yeah. I thought yes, no, you've been very good today. Excellent. In fact, maybe I'll swap you over. You can run it next week instead of Jake. Do you fancy that?
Do I fancy that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've got any slides. I haven't really got.
Yes, no better than Jake then. All right, okay. Right, okay. All have a good weekend. The next time I see you, I'll be back in the UK, at least for a short period of time. Enjoy conference, and don't forget to come and see us at our stand, and listen to Damien's rather entertaining presentation. And have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.